Well, more women have been inspired to run for office this year. According to Rutgers University, 468 women filed to run for seats in the House of Representatives. 118 of them are Republicans. Finding more diverse candidates is a passion project for Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York, the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. Stefanik says they've tripled the number of GOP women running for the House since last cycle. She volunteered to lead recruitment efforts for the National Republican Congressional Committee. Congresswoman Stefanik is here with us at the table. Good morning. Great to have you.
Good morning.
On
Very
with us.
excited.
Well, you are definitely on this mission. And when I heard you were coming on, I recall Gail's interview with Speaker Ryan, and she showed him a picture of House leadership, and they were all white men. Gail said she felt excluded. He said he's working to change that. What are you doing to work to change that image and perception as well?
So this job as chair of recruitment, I'm the first woman to hold this position, and it was a job that I sought out. I think we need to encourage non-traditional candidates to run for office, which is why I focus specifically on recruiting women, on recruiting Hispanic candidates, on recruiting African Americans. In my experience, I was not recruited to run for Congress, so I understand that we needed to think more broadly. And I often think non-traditional candidates in this political climate are the most effective members of Congress and the most effective candidates, particularly in swing districts. So this is a positive news story. It's great to see women running on both sides of the aisle. We're more bipartisan, and we need to increase our numbers in Congress to be more reflective of the population at large.
Women are more bipartisan, you say?
Absolutely. So I'm in the top 10% of the most bipartisan members of Congress. That's something I'm proud of. That's something that I ran on. And if you look at our voting records and the bills that we introduced, women tend to be more bipartisan than our male colleagues.
It seems, though, Elise, that in Congress right now, everything is so tit for tat. It's us against them. There doesn't seem, that bipartisan word doesn't seem to work very well right now. In fact, you've disagreed with President Trump. And I'm wondering how you navigate those waters.
So I represent the North Country. I represent a district in upstate New York, and I have to appeal to swing voters. And it's very reflective of my political philosophy. I think younger people tend to want to reach across the political divide. My district voted for President Obama twice and President Trump. So, you know, I focus my campaigns on not just reaching out to Republicans, but Democrats and independents. And I try to put forth common sense policies that appeal to both parties.
You've disagreed with him about tariffs. You also don't think Scott Pruitt should have the job he's done. You've also spoken out about how it's being handled with the immigrant families. Have you heard from him when you disagree?
You know, I haven't heard directly from the president. I work with this administration on issues where I agree, but when I disagree, I will say so loudly and clearly. And what I think is, again, if you look at these swing districts across the country, we need to appeal beyond party lines. And I think that makes Congress function more effectively as an institution, which is why recruiting these non-traditional candidates is so important for the future of Congress.
One of the challenges for recruiting women appears today in the New York Times. Susan Bevan and Susan Coleman, who describe themselves as pro-choice Republicans, say they're leaving. The piece is titled "Why We Are Leaving the GOP," and a sentence from it says, "As pro-choice Republicans, we refuse to support a party that has rightly earned the labels anti-woman and anti-common sense." What's your response to that?
So my response to that is I think that all issues are women's issues, and I've tried to urge congressional leadership on both sides of the aisle to focus on how all policies specifically impact women. I think we are moving beyond this siloing of women's issues. Tax policy impacts women, economic confidence, manufacturing, agriculture policy, veterans care. So I disagree with that assessment. They obviously have the right to take that position, but I think my leadership shows that women care about all sorts of issues in the district that I represent.
Democrats are accused often by conservatives of being a party in which you can no longer be against abortion rights. Do you think that's the case, and is that somehow an opportunity for Republicans?
So I think we're seeing the Democratic Party shift further and further to the left, not just on that issue, but on a number of issues. We're seeing this play out actually in the Democratic primary process in my district. I'm facing a very crowded field of Democrats. And I think when you look at, again, swing districts in the country where you need to appeal to independent voters, that's going to be a challenge for the Democratic Party.
In those swing districts, women voters are very important. They are having, as Republicans tell me, trouble with this president. Mitt Romney wrote a piece about how he balances supporting the party and presidents. He said, I have and will continue to speak out when the president says or does something which is divisive, racist, sexist, anti-immigrant, dishonest, or destructive to democratic institutions. How can Mitt Romney use those words to describe the president's actions How does that square with the fact that you're trying to get women to vote and participate who have trouble with those very same words Mitt Romney used?
So I think women in my district voted for President Trump, and there are many congressional districts where that's the case across the country. I do agree with Mitt that he is running to represent the people of Utah, just like I am running to represent 700,000 constituents in my district. That's who I work for. That's who I need to make sure that I advocate on their behalf. So I have a very similar position in that I work with this administration on a number of issues where I agree, but where I disagree, especially sometimes with the tweets and the rhetoric, I will say so. And I think we need those types of role models in Congress.
Well, tomorrow's a Democratic primary going up against you. Who are you pulling for?
You know what? It's great to see women raising their hand and running for office.
Yeah, you could be facing a woman in November.
And this is a tough political climate. I experienced that. I think all elected officials experience that. And I give anybody credit who is willing to step into the arena. We need more young voices, and we need more women's voices.
All right. It's nice to see you in person after Nora did the story on you. I know she's sorry she wasn't here at the table to see you herself.
Well, it's an honor to be here.
Good to have you here today. Congresswoman Stefanik, we thank you again.